I wanted to save this section for last because it is, in my opinion, the single biggest problem in the game system. But that in itself is kind of the problem. Currency in the game is so baked into all of the game's main systems that it's pointless to go through all the other issues without including the big-ass butthole first. The game has a bajillion systems, and while I understand the need for them, 14 is so damn large now that the majority are fucking clunky as shit. Incentives to keep up the subscription are becoming a frustrating force pushing people away from the game. The summary is that they need to get rid of most of the currencies that aren't gil. Me saying that sounds pretty dumb, I know, but I will attempt to give you an example to show you how this has spiraled out of control. Back in 3.0, Poetics served as good enough to acquire the older gear, but as of 4.0, the much older sets began to get retired into the hunt system. Now, in addition to keeping Poetics on hand, the possibility of having to grind hunt marks for old gear, not even mentioning the new content added, becomes something of a necessity. I have not even included all of the currencies in the game up to this point, and we are already at 3, 2 of which are only used under special conditions. Now we move into 5.0, and the hunt currency is split further. Now, instead of marks, we're out there sniffing out these nuts. And if we aren't hunting nuts, we're hunting bicolor gemstones. 5 currencies. Different sources, different conditions. You may not even touch them for all we know, but they're there. Let's see. Grand Company seals. Free company credits. Whatever current expansion tombstone with a forgettable name there is. Wolf marks. 2 island sanctuary marks. Gathering and crafting script. Beast tribe tokens, all of which are individual to the tribe. It's insane to expect for there to be any kind of reasonable circulation of any of them, unless you yourself are suffering trying to acquire so-and-so currency for so-and-so goal. If you disagree with the notion that the amount of currencies needs to be reduced, please answer the following question. What reason do you have to continue acquiring this currency outside of your initial desires? As an example, players are incentivized to keep acquiring and spending currency because the market board exists to keep that currency relevant. Your gil might have no use now because you don't need anything, but they're there for when you do. My proposed solution is basically reducing the number of currencies and increasing the impact of the currencies, gil included, that remain. It is my firm belief that players should be rewarded for continuing to do content with easier access to rewards in the future, not given the punishing slog of having to work for however many weeks to grind to get another currency that you'll probably never use again. I can already see the confusion for some of you because roulettes are one of the most active systems in the game. How could it possibly be contributing to the rot? It's one of the main things that people log in for. There are a couple reasons. Big problem number 1 is that there aren't enough roulettes for everything the game has going for it. Big problem number 2? The roulette itself is handled quite terribly. Let me ask you a question no one can reasonably answer. Why is there no roulette for rival wings? That content has communities around it, but you have to go and find them, and they might be the only reason rival wings can fire off at all. It can't be that people will not play the mode because I can't think of anyone that isn't a masochist that enjoys the all-consuming cutscene hell that is the main scenario.
It just shaves another shard of their soul for the billionth time.
Why in the world have guild hests been somehow more forgotten than the GC squadrons, when it's right there in the daily roulette? Now, I can't go too in-depth about what I believe to be the solution here, because it bleeds over into changes I think should be made to the entire battle system, but I can propose a few notes for everyone's sanity. First, MSQ roulettes need to include all MSQ dungeon content, not just the same 2 fucking dungeons that people were having trouble clearing ages ago. There is more, much more to the MSQ at this point, and if they opened it up, not only would newer players be more likely to get into content they need to clear, but there would be variety! You might not feel like
putting out a lit cigarette with your cornea
if there was just that little bit more. As mentioned earlier, just make a roulette for rival wings and crystalline conflict. Expand the expert roulette to be all max level content so we aren't grinding our faces on the same 2 to 3 dungeons for months, well, until the next one comes out and something gets replaced. Say it again for the crowd. We need variety. The options are there, but the vast majority are never accessed because of how they decided to separate the duties. Earlier, I said that no one can reasonably answer why we do not have more roulettes in the game, but I was being cheeky. I can answer why. The answer is currency. The more roulettes that are added, the more rewards need to be introduced. No one is going to respond to their rewards being reduced, but SC is also weirdly attached to the idea that if players are allowed to access a thing they want too quickly, they will simply stop playing the game. Ironically, it causes players to burn out faster with every major content patch because of the slog it takes to get the shiny rewards. With more roulettes, people will potentially reach their weekly cap, which will also contribute to the decay of players doing content. Without people to do the content, obviously people will get into that content less often, yada yada, cue domino effect. Funnily enough, almost all of this issue disappears if they eradicate what I consider to be the next problem.
It is so infinitely stupid.
The biggest strength of the FF14 battle system, the ability to switch classes and roles as desired to become everything and anything, is arbitrarily kneecapped by the game punishing you for choosing to engage in it. You get the big middle finger as you are all but literally forced to choose one role to pursue at a time, and you must commit to it if you want to get through endgame content. This was honestly always a really stupid decision, but there are now simply too many classes in the game for this to be a reasonable limitation. As it is currently, the game is so focused on sticking to the formula of incentivizing players to go after the shiny cheese for the patch cycle that it does not even consider giving them the desire to play for the pleasure of it. They are clearly intelligent enough to recognize that keeping this system active for the crafting and gathering jobs was a foolish decision, so it is suspicious at best when they not only failed to recognize this for the battle classes, but made it even longer to get a full set of gear. What the Moving on, what I'm getting at is that they are so stuck on regulating the circulation and ease of getting current patch currency and gear that they ignore that they could instead incentivize players into trying all the classes and enjoying the game that way. I believe that some players will be lost, reducing or eliminating the weekly caps, because that is how some people choose to play games in general. They rush to the thing they want and bounce until another thing they want appears. But the thing that is stretching their engagement over several weeks does not work forever. Instead, it pisses everyone off eventually, once they realize that's the only reason they are being kept from that succulent cheese. I say we should strive for a more chill advancement towards our goals, not a weekly trip back into the content gulag. I've been giving hints for a little while now. But behind currency, the single biggest problem, and for some the absolute worst issue, is the tendency for the developers to add content to the game that they proceed to do absolutely nothing with. I mentioned guild hests. Remember those? Because Square clearly chose to forget. For those that actually have no clue what they are basically mini trials that emphasize class roles and teamwork. They were really neat, and even today remain some of the most unique content in the game. What about squadrons? Remember when those were a thing? I understand that Shadowbringers happened, but the trust system is not a good enough reason to let the squadron system die when there is so much more it does that trust cannot. golly gee, does anyone else remember how it's been literally the game's entire fucking lifespan, and we still don't have all of the Grand Company ranks? When is the last time any of you have played Lord of Verminion? I could go on and on all day, but the important part beyond the high sodium hatred is that they keep adding all of these neat systems that they proceed to drop without completing. Even in the examples where we could consider a system to be complete, there is no reason why we couldn't add to them. I'll use beast tribes because they are the lowest hanging fruit for me that would make me spiral into an endless tirade. Even if you hit max rank for a tribe, why can we not get more content themed for that tribe in the future? Surely they can give us a reason to keep coming back to these tribes from time to time once their story has concluded. Why can't they add more new hunt marks for the older expansions to keep it feeling more alive? Even Island Sanctuary, one of their latest endeavors, feels hollow as a result of this. Myself and a few friends are waiting for them to basically drop the Island Sanctuary content. You know, the supposedly stress-free, relaxing content that absolutely isn't a sweatshop. 4. Ultra Omega Space Sanctuary Relaxation 2.0 baby, oh yeah! Don't even get me started on the Criterion dungeons. How are players supposed to feel the desire to do content they can't be sure won't just stagnate after a while? This trend really needs to stop, and the game would be served beautifully by them taking a damn breath and looking more into the systems we already have in place. We don't need the metaphorical crowbar forcing another new shiny that we will be duped into wasting more weeks on, instead of just, again, prioritizing letting us be happy. Yeah, nah. There's too much here, so it'll have to be its own video. That way, when the pitchforks come out to rip me to pieces, I'll know it was for this specific thing, instead of all the other stuff I went on about. Tell me about it in the comments. If I'm being completely honest, I feel like there are a few more things locked into the game's systems that deserve to be addressed. But after realizing how long my last video was, I wanted to target the big things that I believe are actively killing the game. There's plenty of time to mix in personal gripes that just so happen to also be dumb. Like, what's up with them dropping underwater content? Or adding content that isn't just gates to the golden saucer? But that's really all I have for now. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. I think that having an honest discourse is the first step towards the game actually improving, so screech away at me in the hopes that one day this cacophony reaches the devs.